Hey Trail Riders, welcome back to the Daily Ride. I hope you guys are doing well today. Today's focal passage comes from Romans 5:8, which says, God demonstrates His own love toward us in that while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. The Daily Fire thought for today is going to be 1 Peter chapter 2, verse 24 in a paraphrasation. Christ Himself bore my sins in His own body on the tree, that I, having died to sins, might live for righteousness. Mark my word passages for today is Matthew 1:23, Matthew 2:27 through 56, Romans 5:8, and 2 Corinthians chapter 5 verse 21. The scriptures that get us through the Bible in a year are Numbers chapter 5, Psalm chapter 39, Song of Solomon chapter 3, and Hebrews chapter 3. We're going to be talking today about Jesus in the real world. Who was Jesus? The Bible tells us that He was Emmanuel, God with us, Matthew 1:23. Jesus showed us God getting involved in the real world. He got His hands dirty. He got His hands nailed to a cross, and He did it so that we could be set free from the power and devastation of sin. When Roman prisoners were marched out to be crucified, they carried a crossbeam on their shoulders. With their arms tied to the beam, they walked bent over, doubled up, to the place of execution. That is how Jesus walked through Jerusalem to the execution hill called Calvary. Then the soldiers of the governor took Jesus into the praetorium and gathered the whole garrison around Him, and they stripped Him, and they put a scarlet robe on Him, and then they twisted a crown of thorns and put it on His head, and a reed in His right hand, and bowed the knee before Him, and mocked Him, saying, Hail, King of the Jews! Then they spat on Him, and took the reed and struck Him on the head, and when they had mocked Him, they pulled the robe off of Him, and put His own clothes back on Him, and led Him away to be crucified. Matthew 27 through 31. It was as if He was carrying a banner or a giant sign proclaiming, Never forget. The crossbeam carried by Jesus speaks of our human minus our negative, the failure and sin that lies in the heart of us all. The cross shows us God's incredible response to human suffering. God Himself entered into our suffering and took our sin on Himself. Jesus, although He was completely innocent and without sin, was made to be the sin offering for us all, as it tells us in 2 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 21. As one of the first Christians to put it, while we are still sinners, Christ died for us, as Paul tells us in Romans 5 and verse 8. On that hill, Jesus put the crossbeam of our sin and wickedness across the upright that changed our human minus into God's plus. Jesus released the power of God's mercy, forgiveness, and healing to anyone who would come to Him and simply ask for it. And that means me. Thank you, Jesus, that You died for me. God bless you guys. I hope you'll continually follow us here on the Daily Ride, and I'll see you on the next trail ride.